I think Wood's point on Pittsburgh as a whole, like they've accepted average quarterback play, is the point that stands out to me. Do you want to lead the NFL in rushing, Pittsburgh? And Harry, your point of if you can get Russ, listen, these cats are who they are. Russ is who he is. He's not going to be a guy that minimizes sacks anymore. He's not going to be the guy that plays at such a high efficient pace unless he becomes something he's really never been in his career. What we know is this about Justin Fields. There's highs and there's lows. There's good and there's bad. He's not going to play on time and on rhythm, but he is going to create explosive plays. And we often talk about quarterback play. We're going to do this with the Jets a little bit, only in that vacuum. Could you imagine T.J. Watt in the fourth quarter knowing he's got a touchdown lead? Could you imagine Cam Hayward and Mika Fitzpatrick and Joey Porter Jr. with those guys knowing if we get the ball back, this game is blouses because Justin Fields and this offense will run it out. And I think that's the way that the Steelers have to think. The team in your division who's really owned it along with Cincinnati for the past couple of years gave you the blueprint. Will Arthur Smith use more designed quarterback runs? If he's willing to do that, this is an easy decision.
Brooke, final word as we let you get set to go off and cover practice.
Greeny, I want to give you a little more food for thought, maybe a pierogi for thought here in Latrobe. But 2 years ago, when the Steelers were in a similar quarterback situation between Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky took almost all of the first-team reps at camp. And that meant that in week 4, when he was pulled in favor of Kenny Pickett in the middle of the game, Pickett didn't have any familiarity or rapport with that first-team offense. Russell Wilson's injury early in camp at least gives Justin Fields the opportunity to work with the first-team offense, with those guys like George Pickens, work with that first-team offensive line, which means that if Pittsburgh does start Russell Wilson and then pivot to Justin Fields, Fields isn't going in there cold the way that they did to Kenny Pickett. So the quarterback situation is better set up now because of this minor injury to Russell Wilson.
All right, that's an excellent point. Go cover practice. Stay dry out there. It looks like it's a little messy. We'll check back in with you soon, and we'll see what winds up happening today. In the meantime,
Okay, so it's interesting. I really want to highlight what Orlovsky said about the quarterback. The quarterbacks are who they are, right? We do this a lot where we're just like, if only we can get this quarterback to do this, and this. And it's like, well, they haven't done that, and they've been in the league for like 10 years. And I know it's probably a little bit easier to do that with some of these younger quarterbacks because we'll say things like, oh, well, they didn't have the right coach, the right team, the right roster, the right franchise, whatever. And I get it. There is like legitimate logic to that. But it depends, though. Maybe if it's one thing, like a lot of interceptions or turnovers in general, or, bad reads or bad anticipation. Like if it's just like maybe a thing or so, then you can maybe point to why this was happening. Because maybe, again, coaching, personnel, however we want to look at it. But if it's like a whole list of like a handful of things, it's like, well, now you're just talking about turning that quarterback into a completely different quarterback altogether. And it's just like, that becomes a bridge too far. So it is. I am really curious in terms of Russell Wilson versus Justin Fields. This is actually one of the more interesting storylines. And I don't think it's actually gotten as much media attention as it should. For whatever reason, the Steelers, considering they're such a iconic franchise in the NFL and a relatively large city, definitely on like a little bit on the smaller side compared to some of these other cities, but an incredibly passionate city. I lived in Pittsburgh, incredibly passionate city. They're all football. They absolutely love the Steelers, and it is interesting to me that this does not get as much as steady regular attention on any of the shows. First Things First, The Herd, First Take, whatever it may be. I really only ever see Steelers stories on like a random clip like this from like Get Up, NFL Live, and it's always just like a quick little soundbite about like, what are we gonna do with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson? So it is interesting to me. I'm curious if they can actually get some momentum going and actually be fighting for a like the division, or actually people believe that they could actually win some playoff games if they'll get more attention. I feel like maybe last year it was one of those things where the people were like, okay, yeah, they might make the playoffs, but like no one really saw them as a threat to actually like get to the AFC Championship game or even win a Super Bowl. I think it's also probably the problem that when you don't have like I feel like the NFL to a degree is becoming more similar to the NBA, where individual players are becoming like the main marketing enterprise and how we like elevate a team. For the longest time, right, we always football was always very proud of this, of like, it's not about the individual players, right, it's about the team, and you could trade your most popular player, or he could cut or retire, and like the team doesn't suffer, as in like where basketball, it's very much like LeBron James centered, Steph Curry centered. And I think with these quarterbacks though, it's just becoming like more and more and more and more popular, that like they are becoming more individual driven. I personally, my experience on here, because right now the most popular team would have to be the Kansas City Chiefs, it's Patrick Mahomes. People are more high on Patrick Mahomes than the Kansas City Chiefs individually, and that's like probably one of the first times I've seen that personally, at least this intimately, considering this is a newer channel, and I feel like that's probably what's kind of lacking for some of the Pittsburgh attention, is that they don't have that super really popular quarterback. But based off of my videos that I've done with the Steelers, it does feel to me that the fans really, really want Justin Fields more than Russell Wilson. And it's interesting to me. I wonder if a lot of these fans are just really high on Justin Fields, if they really truly just can't get past the idea of like the potential is there. And because he is like a Madden-esque quarterback, as we use, where it's just like he can do some of these video game type stuff, and so people get so obsessed with that. Or if it's like this is just a younger group of fans that don't really know the consistency and the incredibly high level and great play that Russell Wilson has been able to do for years. And they're just kind of potentially losing sight of that. And so now they just want to kind of, jump on Justin Fields. And I do get the argument, because someone said in the comments recently, like, okay, Russell Wilson hasn't really done anything, for years, and stop bringing up like a Super Bowl that was like 10 years or so ago. And I get that argument, but again, we're living in such a bizarre world right now, football world, where it just feels so strongly to me. And again, this is based off my direct interaction with these fans, and it just, in the comments, that it really is just, unless these quarterbacks are like in the MVP conversation or winning Super Bowls, it's just like we see them as just trash. It's just not good, and move on to the next one. And that's just not where the NFL is. Maybe one day it'll be like that. Maybe we will just be littered with quarterbacks, and it'll just be like, yeah, man, if your quarterback's not truly great / elite, move on. But we're not there yet. You just can't be like, well, I'm either going to have Patrick Mahomes or no one. And sometimes, depending on your roster, you need different things. Okay, so if this roster, and a lot of people believe that this offense is really, really sound, and this defense will continue to be really, really good. And if that is a case, you do just want an incredibly mature, consistent quarterback who's not going to put your team at a deficit, who's not going to back your team in a corner and need to be bailed out. And that is what Russell Wilson can do. And that is not what Justin Fields has been able to show to do. Now, it doesn't say that doesn't mean that Justin Fields can't do that. It's just that he has not shown us to do that. And as Orlovsky pointed out, he has his highs and his lows. And if you could just minimize lows, if you just have a really solid team, which the Steelers, like I said, the argument should be that the Steelers do have that. They have a really solid team. If you get a quarterback who's just also really solid, that can then legitimately carry you into the playoffs and actually get some playoff wins. You're taking advantage now. What you hope to do, if that's your category of team, is to take advantage of the teams when they make mistakes, right? It's just, you just have to pounce on their errors, on their margin of error gets smaller because you're just a consistent team. Sure, you might not be that team that can really blow anyone out, or you may not be that team that can come back from a down 21. But it's just like, you just put pressure on the other team, where it's like, yeah, the moment you make a mistake, the moment you give us a turnover, the moment you go 3 and out, deep in your own territory, we're going to pounce. We got this. And that to me is the type of team that the Steelers can be. And truthfully, that's kind of who they've been now for the last few years, but they haven't had consistent quarterback play. And they've had quarterbacks that have put themselves at a deficit, that have backed them in the corner. And I don't think Russell Wilson will be that quarterback. I don't think he's going to harm. He's going to bring the Steelers down. Justin Fields has the chance to bring the Steelers up, but also significantly bring them down. Like, he is just, hot and cold. That is the reality of who he is right now. Unless they really believe, and they see him in playoffs, and they see him with all these first team reps and all that type of stuff, they say, okay, we can reach the conclusion that the Chicago Bears just did a terrible job with Justin Fields, which obviously really remains to be seen. You have to just go with Russell Wilson, and I think the team is going to want that as well, because the team will know who's going to be the most solid quarterback. I mean, to some degree, though, a lot of players will get seduced by some of like the magical plays if Justin Fields does them in practice, and they'll be like, whoa, like, I'm not seeing Russ do that. But again, the name of the game to me for the Steelers is consistency. Consistency. And it's just, and not all teams need that, right? Like, seriously, not last year's for the Chiefs, but years past, they didn't need that consistency. They could have kind of Patrick Mahomes be wilding out at times, right? Josh Allen, for instance, his teams would be better off with, he needs to be wilding out because he has no chance outside of that. Like, he needs to be throwing the ball 100 times and forcing the ball downfield. Otherwise, they don't have a chance. The Bengals, back when Joe Burrow was actually consistently playing, they just needed great, consistent play from him, and they could win. Like, all teams need different things. The 49ers just need consistent quarterback play. They don't need a Josh Allen forcing the ball downfield. They don't need to force the issue in that regard. It's just different levels. And I just think you have to look at the type of team that you have. And that's why, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because it's more relevant when you have a quarterback battle like this, right? Because especially because you have two completely different quarterbacks. It's going to be so fascinating to see which way they go. And now that Russ seems to be like legitimately, injured and limited in practice, like, that does give Justin Fields a massive leg up. Right? I mean, it's really the difference at this point when you're actually practicing and getting all those reps. It's a difference between someone in the building and not. It is. It's like, for those of you who work, whether it's like a traditional office job or a more blue collar labor type work, it's the difference between like the main guy in the building with you and just not at all. It's like, if you're not actually practicing with the first team, you're actually not getting involved in that, it's like you may as well not even be there. Seriously, it's just a different energy. And plus, the team now starts to kind of get behind someone because they have to. They're not going to be stuck in purgatory just kind of waiting around. They have to get their rhythm. They have to get their flow. Some of these guys are trying to, earn a future contract, earn a spot in the team, become a starter, whatever it may be. Like, they're focused about themselves. And so they have to just kind of get behind who's ever in front of them. And right now it's Justin Fields. So it can't be understated that this really does hurt Russ, because he does not have really any weight in that locker room at all. So anytime Justin Fields can close that gap or kind of prove like, yo, I put us in a better position to win. Yeah, sure, he might be a little more consistent and more mature and has some of the experience, but like, bro, like, I'm legit. He can't do this. It matters. It really, really does. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all unfolds. We're getting obviously closer and closer to it. And yeah, for the long time, we didn't really have any like new information. It was just kind of speculation. But now with Russ getting injured, it's just one more, I don't know, log in the fire. So we shall see. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? The Steelers team, think about the Steelers team as a whole. Which quarterback do you think gives them a better position to win? Not the best quarterback, but which quarterback do you think puts the Steelers in a better position to win now? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.